Guys, this is Heat. I wanted to do a video today on the 5-day hardcore solo self-found build that I used. I think this is the first time GGG has done a solo race. No trading, no partying. I wanted to give you my thoughts on the build and why I put the build together the way I did. Also, we'll take a look at how well I did the rankings. And this isn't going to be, I'm not going to have any gameplay in this video. I will link you in the description and in the notes in the video to me doing the map. And I also put together a pretty cool Google Sheets guide for this build. It goes really in depth into the build, so you can take a look at that. This is going to be a little bit more of an overview and why I went with this build. Alright, so the first thing, let's take a look at ranks. How well did I do? Alright, so let's check this out. So I put this together. This is from the Google Sheets guide. And let's take a look at ranks. Rankings for for the 5-day hardcore top 100. I didn't make it in the top 100. I was actually ranked 114th after you subtract the deaths from that. But I think I don't like using that metric because it's not very, to me, in my mind, it's not indicative of how well you know the game, because people who have the luxury of playing a lot of hours, like for example, this dude, these are estimates, these dude played like 104 hours, 80, 70, so that's a lot, right? So if you play a lot, even if you're not that good, you'll be able to just place really high in the rankings, right? So what I like to look at is XP per hour, and basically what I did is I sorted these by XP per hour, and I looked, and my actual XP per hour is 31.3 million, and that would put me somewhere around 22nd place. This dude is crazy. Whoever was number one, I don't know who this guy is. That's really strong. And so Kobe Black was also who actually won the whole thing. This is pretty strong, and I think this is a better indicative of skill because it shows you how efficient, how much knowledge that you have, how good you are at clearing and stuff like that. So I think this is a better way to look at it. GGG should look into this. I realize that there's an allure or sort of charm of being able to play a lot, but that doesn't mean that you're better just because you play a lot, right? Like, it doesn't mean that this guy who's averaging 18 million as opposed to me almost like double, had almost double that, right? It doesn't mean that he was actually better. So I think GGG should look at sort of giving weight to overall ranking and sort of total XP by per hour ranking. So giving them a weight and sort of calculating it, but whatever, I don't know if they'll do that. There was another stat here, top 50 XP earning moments. I scored I'm in the top 15 twice at number 8 and then number 12. So I think overall I did pretty solid. I'm pretty happy with my performance. You can take a look at more. There's some more random stats in here, like my best drops and stuff like that. Yeah, that's how well I did. So let's take a look at the build. All right, so let me switch back to Path of Exile. And all right, so why did I go with Searing Bond? Well, Searing Bond is actually, it doesn't require a lot of links. You can only use one link that increases its DPS, which is increased burning damage. So in a solo self-found race, in my mind, the thing that I wanted to do was mitigate bad RNG drops. That was one of my main focuses, if not the main focus. So one way to do that is do something, like I don't need 4 links. I can run it with 2. I can run it with 3. Faster casting isn't really even necessary. I can put something else in there like item rarity, which will help me with RNG as well. So that's why I went with Searing Bond. The other reason I went with Searing Bond is it's another layer of defense, right? When I think about defenses, I think about layers. Life, high life. This build is super high armor. We're talking about around 30,000 armor with granite and increased armor on flask. So that's really solid. I have 4,000 life, which doesn't seem like a lot, but because my mitigation was so crazy, I actually cut down on my life. Like, I had 44 or 4,500, but I was taking absolutely like easy hits, and so I never even came close to ripping on this build, so it was extremely tanky. The only other build that I played that was more tankier was I played like an EB, Arctic Armor, Iron Reflex with a 4-link cast on damage taken, your typical setup, and that was like super tanky. That's the only build that was more tankier than this. So I feel in that regard that armor is a little underrated because it's actually pretty good. It's just that when you can trade, you have the option of going with Lightning Coil or a Cloak of Defiance. So I think armor gets some negative flack because of that, but I think it's pretty strong actually. So yeah, Searing Bond, dual totems, because it's another layer of defense. There are 2 totems, meaning that enemies will aggro onto them instead of to you, so it deflects getting damage taken. So that's why I went with totems and Searing Bond. I already explained why I went with that. High armor, and the reason I went with high armor is because you can't, I wanted to mitigate bad RNG drop. You can't depend on getting Lightning Coil. You can't depend on getting Cloak of Defiance. And so the best way I thought was basically to go with armor. And it worked out pretty well. And I went with, I also have Enduring Cry. I ran 6 endurance charges, which was really strong. I used Molten Shell not very often, but I did use it in like when there was like powerful crits around or something like that. And I was able to run some crazy maps. If you check out the Google Sheet stock, I put in the craziest map I ran in there, which is I thought it was absolutely insane. So let me talk about some nuances. So this is the vendor. I purposely placed the vendor like this and the stash like this. So let me show you why. Because when you go into a map, and then, like, let's say you go into this map and then you want to TP out because you have things to sell. What's really important is you want to have a lot of alterations. So I would usually only make 1 trip back and I would sell. So when you TP out, the vendor is immediately there. Boom, you sell your items. Exile. Boom, you toss everything in here that you need to, and then bam, you're back in just like that. Admit it, it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're playing a lot and you don't have to walk back, it really cuts back on time, makes things more efficient. That's a little bit nuanced. I'm not really sure how much that helped, but I think it helped a little bit. The other thing I did is I used a recipe that I think is really important for solo self-found, and this recipe is this.
Good day to you,
What you do is you sell 3 max quality of the same item, 1 rare, 1 magic, and 1 and 1 white, right? So rare, magic, white, and what happens is you get an orb of alchemy. Now what this is, how I used this was it allowed me to get a free roll on an astral plate. Okay, so basically what I did is I used this vendor recipe until I rolled something really good and I didn't need to be concerned about this armor. Like once I rolled this armor, I was like, okay, I'm done. Like I don't need to roll anything else, and I relied on the only upgrade that I would look for is if it dropped in the game. I did the same thing with the shield. This was a random alch. I was saving shields, doing this vendor recipe. Boom, once I rolled this, I was like, yo, this is crazy, 1200 armor, I'm done, right? Like the only upgrade that I would try to roll, try to replace is if it dropped in game. The other thing I did with this build is, in the skill tree, I have crazy amounts of elemental resistances. In the guide, you can check out to see, I put it in there, how much resistances I have from the tree, but it's absolutely insane. And what that allowed me to do is mitigate bad RNG on armor. And it also allowed me to do stuff like, if I were to get, for example, like a shield that had 1800 armor and life and nothing else, I would still be able to use that because I had so much elemental resistances on the tree. So that's how I approach this build. And I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions about it, let me know. Post in the comments. Check the description for the links. Thanks for watching, guys.